DJ LeRoy.
NightWatchman, my brother. How you been, man?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. So, NightWatchman, I can't believe more and more stuff seems to be emerging about Fox, man. Do you believe it?
I don't care about them. This
You
is
don't?
we have truth on this channel. That's all I can tell you
Oh,
about.
oh.
Yep,
So,
yep.
so you telling me that this show is about the real deal? Is that what you're saying?
Real deal only here. Yep,
Okay. So we have somebody who might be termed a Renaissance person, a Renaissance woman. Is that correct?
that's correct.
I mean, you couldn't do it at any other time, but of course, Women's History Month. Is that correct?
We could do it any other time, actually. Yes,
But we chose to do it today. Okay.
absolutely.
Well, you know what? Without further delay, we got to bring her up. Dr. Crystal Lee. Bring her up. Hey, Doc,
Good
how are you?
morning.
Good
I
morning.
mean,
No, NightWatchman is already out there. It's in the
yeah.
ether. That's right.
I know.
Hey, so, Doc, needless to say, just going over your bio, you are truly, like I said, and NightWatchman made the joke, there must be at least 4 of you.
That would be really awesome.
How do you do it all? How do you find the time to do it all?
Well, let's start by talking about what brought her to New York.
Yes. Do tell.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. In my Dene, otherwise known as Navajo language, we say Yat E Bene. So good morning. First off, I'd like to just introduce myself in my tribal language. My name, Dr. Crystal Lee Inishia, Nato Dene Etachi Inishle, Nanish Editan Baham, Bashichin, Senjikin Dashiche, Kintlachini Dashanele, Tiso, Arizona, Ade Nasha. I'm originally from a very, very small community on the Navajo reservation called Tiso, Arizona, and I just stated my 4 tribal clans.
Wow.
Dedicated to Women's History Month, as our tribe is matriarchal because of our matrilineal clanship system that we always take our mother's clan first.
Nice.
So,
yes. Very nice.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's such an honor. And why we're here in New York City is us and our team. That's inclusive of my business partner, Dr. Ebony Granados, and 2 of our youth tribal council members for United Natives. We actually came here to present at the United Nations Commission on Status of Women. And our topic was centered around Indigenous women in leadership using a hybrid of technology, education, cultural knowledge, and community-based resources in both urban and rural areas.
Wow. So, Dr. Lee, do tell us, because you have many different hats that you wear, right? And we're going to try to cover all of them. And one, of course, that kind of got me, because remember, I'm an old b-ball player.
Mm-hmm.
And I did see through the bio, you have not 1 but 2 professional teams. Do tell.
Correct. Yes. So, reservation on the reservation, basketball is such a big deal. There's not a lot of resources or outlets on the reservation for especially Native youth, and basketball it just happens to be one of our main things that our youth engage in, because it's doesn't take a lot of money, and you can just put a hoop literally anywhere. So a lot of us res kids that grew up on a reservation grew up playing res ball. So basketball has been such a huge proponent in our lives. And like yourself, I did play a couple of years in college. I played in junior college as a 2-3 shooting guard.
Nice.
And just, basketball, for the love of the game of it, really taught me a lot, not just as a player, but also in general about life skills. And I seized an opportunity last summer to participate in part ownership of a basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I went into this opportunity, I was one of 3 persons who owned the team, and then mid-season I bought my other two co-owners out, and I became sole owner.
Wow.
And then this year I picked up another team. So we renamed the teams.
What are their names?
So the one in Tecate, Mexico is now called Tecate Magic.
Mm.
And the other team is in Rosarito, Mexico, and we're calling it Rosarito Sun.
Wow. Yeah, I already did see your swag that you were wearing. You were wearing a Suns hat. Hmm.
Yes. Go
Well,
Suns.
yes. Well, we certainly will see now that you guys have acquired KD, who's now injured. I understand, but we'll see how this season plays out for sure. So, Night Watchman, I see you're ready. You're aiming. Go ahead.
I just, first of all, we're really delighted to have you on the show. I wanted to hear a little bit more about your journey in addressing the issues of indigenous health. So tell us how that started and where you are now with that.
Okay. Sure. So by training, academic training, I am considered an infectious disease research doctor, and I did my training specific to infectious disease and preventative medicine at UCLA School of Medicine in the Department of Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Sciences. And so just understanding our lack of cultural responsiveness when it comes to adequate health care, and growing up on the reservation, both of my maternal and paternal grandfathers were Navajo medicine men.
Wow.
And conducted a lot of health and healing ceremonies and a very holistic practice. And I really wanted to use my cultural background when it comes to health and healing combined with elements of Western medicine through my academic training. So how we got into this space is our nonprofit sector, which is called United Natives. During the time of COVID, because COVID really had a large adverse impact on our tribes, especially my tribe, the Navajo Nation. When the state of New York and the state of New Jersey were at one of its highest peak in the world, my tribe actually superseded the COVID cases per population capita globally.
Wow.
In late March, early April of 2020. So my nonprofit partnered with Frontline physicians, and we together raised over $3 million in worth of PPE supplies. Again, very limited resources on the reservation. So we had a direct contract with Lysol, and we disseminated so many products that were needed to help address COVID. But we also had a quarantine phase, and we secured a hotel of about 300 rooms. And we did all the transportation, and we started quarantining some of our community members in Arizona. And through our quarantine phase, the social impacts were definitely highlighted. A lot of domestic violence in the house.
Oh, wow.
Increase in substance abuse, grief, trauma, and housing insecurity, food insecurity. So that's when I called my business partner, Dr. Ebony Granados, who you will meet, and I said we have to start something, especially relating to mental behavioral health, because that seems to be the huge ripple impact post-COVID. So by way of our efforts through our nonprofit United Natives, we then started our company, Indigenous Health.
And Doc, please do tell. Now we certainly know off the reservation, you've seen how the nation literally is divided in terms of some. We had 45 saying, of course, that COVID was a hoax, or remember the Chinese flu, Kung flu, all that negative, stereotypical type stuff. On the reservation, how was it received? The information about what was happening with COVID. How were you guys dealing with that?
Well, the public health messaging is also a key factor in communication. And We didn't really have access to information that spoke to our
Mm-hmm.
community members at the level I think the message needed to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
But we also want to be mindful of the fact that through colonization um, from Europe and French and Spanish, that the Native Americans, indigenous people here in North America, were purposely exposed to infectious disease such as
Mm.
smallpox to help eradicate our communities.
Yep. Yep.
So when COVID hit, it was the grief and trauma in association with the pandemic again was already existent. So and we had higher elevations of associated grief and trauma based on our previous experience through our genocidal practices that were imposed amongst us centuries ago.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And certainly we've seen and just expanding a little bit, we've seen the pushback in terms of, let's say, the teaching of real history, truthful history.
Correct.
So, so just wondering, the Native American dialogue or story. Have you seen pushback, let's say, in some of the states from Arizona to Nevada to Oklahoma about literally the real truth behind how they were systematically attempted to be wiped out?
Yes, especially in the public school systems. There has been a lot of pushback and resistance amongst, of course, implementing um, what what Columbus Day even is, and that we
Mm-hmm.
were here prior to colonization, and of course the genocidal practices. I actually got a master's degree from University of Oklahoma, focused on Indigenous peoples law, so I could really understand from federal Indian policy level how historically and politically these policies have impacted our communities. And let's go back to current with the COVID. And I have to say that while states were getting federal relief funding to address
Mm-hmm.
COVID in the states, in their respective states, and tribes did not get any federal funding for the first round. So we're
Wow.
already talking with tribes. COVID happens, and we're already limited in resources, combined with lack of federal aid. And we did not, and tribes had to actually fight to get COVID relief funding, and we were not given funding until fall of 2020. Whereas where all states, all the states within the U.S. got federal relief funding early on when COVID hit. So this is also as being tribal and being sovereign nations, that we are in a political, we're always in a political trenches, whether we like it or not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one thing I know, Night Watchman, when we were having lunch, uh, he rightfully did, like, because remember we talked about the Super Bowl, and we had my team won. I will not say their name, but we certainly do know that finally, after many years, Dan Snyder agreed to finally uh, uh, remove the name the Redskins. So tell me about, in terms of some of these legacy mascots or names that teams use. Very, very offensive. What have been the opinion on the res?
I can speak to my circle
Yep.
that we are definitely not a fan
Yeah.
of using Native Americans in any capacity as a form of mascot.
Yes.
There's a few things that are associated with it, psychological distress,
Hmm.
because of the notion that we're not human. We are a caricature. We are a mascot.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Also, the aspect of what type of visibility that means for us. I remember going to an Atlanta Braves game, and they were doing the tomahawk chalk, and
Yes.
I got extremely offended. And when you have these people wearing headdresses, and they're doing it and to quote unquote cheer for the team. But a lot of these elements, whether it's the headdress, it's the other aspects of our cultural regalia that are used in sacred spaces through ceremony, but it's almost like we're being mocked in public spaces, and people don't really understand the misrepresentation that it leads to, and the offense that it also leads to.
Gotcha. NightWatchman, I see you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just listening to some of the parallels you were talking about in terms of the health crisis from COVID. I wasn't aware that it hit your reservation almost the same time as it hit New York, and I think everybody was kind of caught by surprise at how quickly and how deadly it came in. And in here in our space, people were more or less sheltering in place. There were no hotels. I think that was an innovative solution to try to quarantine. But the rest of it sounds very similar. We found in our communities that resources were not being allocated and distributed nearly as fast as they were in other areas. And even as things were supposed to be distributed, for some reason, they were setting up resources in Central Park and basically benefiting the areas that were least impacted. And when we saw the maps of where we were being hardest hit, it was our areas. It was Harlem. It was the Bronx. It was areas of Brooklyn. And yet they were not setting anything up directly in our communities. So we see these parallels, and I'm glad that we're able to have this dialogue. And again, this is a space where we talk the truth about what has happened and the history of genocidal practices. And so I'm just feeling my heart about what you're talking about the re-traumatization of people as a result of seeing a pandemic and understanding the history of it.
Yes.
Thank you. I also want to highlight, what is red life like? I know that was a question.
Yep.
For there's some context. There's 574 federally recognized tribes in the U.S. That's inclusive of Alaska Native communities.
Gotcha.
And we're all distinct, although we have similar values and philosophical mindset and worldviews. We each have our own tribal languages and associated cultural systems. So I also want to talk about the similarities, but also tribes are completely also different and distinct. My tribe, which is the Navajo Nation, we have the largest tribe in the U.S. Our reservation is about the size of the state of West Virginia, so around 27,000 square feet miles. So it's a pretty big land mass. And mind you, we only have 13 grocery stores within our jurisdiction.
Crazy.
A third of our population does not have running water. A fourth of our population does not have electricity. So when COVID hit and the CDC was recommending for us to wash hands for prevention purposes, how do you tell communities who don't have those basic amenities to follow? So our communities got hit really hard just because also of the lack of running water, of electricity, information, getting access to information in adequate time because we don't have electricity, hence internet. So all these social aspects were definitely highlighted during COVID.
Absolutely. So certainly when we saw 45 when we had the flooding, the destruction, the hurricane that hit, of course, Puerto Rico. During COVID, were there any visits by federal officials to the res?
Yes, so we got some. We had I want to say federal officials. I think the CDC did come at one point. I believe we got Doctors Without Borders who came. We had some academic institutions give some relief. So, I mean, some people did really try to come and support. And and because of a lot of other grassroots organizations, just not only my nonprofit, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of other grassroots native based or Navajo based organizations also did an amazing um, contribution as well. So we kind of all pulled together as much resources as we can. So kudos to all the other organizations, and we got a lot of celebrity support too.
Nice,
Different
nice,
celebrities who were assisting and supporting, allocating resources for our tribe.
nice. And Doc, one of the other things was said. Of course, I refer to you as the Renaissance woman, doing everything. One of the other things, knowing that you do travel a lot between New York and Arizona. And so I definitely want to know, you mentioned that you're also on the board of L'Oreal, the cosmetics firm. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I've been sitting on L'Oreal USA for the past 3 years since 2020. And it's really to bring inclusion of Indigenous people
Mm-hmm.
into the space of these quote unquote invisible spaces because of our lack of representation.
Mm-hmm.
But also, L'Oreal, I believe, has done a really good job of being intentional and not very surfacey. I think it's one thing to say, well, we want inclusion, but then don't really practice the aspect of inclusion. But L'Oreal has did an amazing job of the inclusion aspect and also supporting our efforts. So right now, L'Oreal did fund us for a grant. There's a huge epidemic both here in the U.S. and Canada that's called the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women epidemic. So what this means is because of our political jurisdiction on reservations, our Native American women are targeted because we lack the right to try criminal cases and or any other federal offenses on the reservations that are criminal based.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the perpetrators are not Native American. A lot of the victims are Native American.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these cases fall through the crack. And because of that, our Native women are definitely targeted. We have the highest homicide rate out of any ethnic group in the U.S. We also have the highest rate of sexual assault out
Wow.
of any racial ethnic group in the U.S. as well.
Incredible. That is definitely one of the things that I want you to speak about that a little bit more. That literally the number of Native women who have disappeared. And remember, in terms of folks looking for them now, you may have some, I got to say, some blonde, blue-eyed young lady who disappears, and suddenly everybody, they're on the news 24/7. But Native women, forget it. So tell me about that, what you've witnessed there in that space.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on personal, but also
Mm-hmm.
when our other panelists come on, I would
Mm-hmm.
also like them to speak about this because
Okay.
each of us have different experiences. But in a nutshell, a lot of our Native women are going missing. Again, we're being targeted, either we're through homicide or even sex trafficked. Um, all these social oppressive states, and because of our political jurisdiction, we do have the highest cases. Also, I want to state that a lot of our stereotypes of why we are being dehumanized as
Mm-hmm.
we're not important enough to be to be on the news. We're not important enough to, if someone goes missing, for efforts to try to find us.
Mm-hmm.
Is all those associated stereotypes. Well, she was probably drinking anyways,
Yeah.
or she was on
Mm-hmm.
drugs. So, she is
Wow.
not in a quote unquote as valued because of all these stereotypes that us Native women have. And so I've heard this a lot about why we're just not deemed as valuable members of the communities in quote unquote mainstream society. So But yeah, I would definitely like to expound on this when our other fellow panelists come on.
Okay, for sure. Because Night Watchman, we certainly have heard that narrative with black women as well who go missing. You know, but go ahead, Night Watchman.
Oh no, I'm just it's just sad and shocking that these things exist, and there's really very little media coverage on these things other than on very narrow channels. But that's why we have channels such as this, so we can talk about them openly and hopefully shed some light on them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know what, Doc? Why don't we, start to bring your folks out? What do you say?
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
We can have everyone log on. Let me see.
Okay. Who do you want to bring out first? You tell me.
Well, let's start with Dr. Ebony Granados.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Hey, Doc.
How are you
doing?
Welcome to Soul Lounge Prime Time.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh man, this is good. This is very, very good. And so, Doc, please tell me about your journey.
Okay. Well, how Midakila Yapi, Dr. Brushbreaker Ebony Granados, Le Makbia Skonwi, Hichika, I just want to say good morning.
Hold on 1 second. Night Watchman, you able to bring that down? Okay. I'm sorry, Doctor. Go ahead. One more time. Let's try this.
That's okay. It looks like we're both in the same room, so that's probably why you're getting a little bit of feedback. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
New York hotel rooms are pretty small, so.
Yes. That's right.
So how Midakia Yapi, Dr. Ebony Brushbreaker Granados, Makbia Skanwi, Le Nichi Yapi. Hi, my name is Ebony, Dr. Ebony Granados Brushbreaker. I am also, my Lakota name is Makbia Skanwi, which is a White Cloud Woman, and I'm originally from the Rosebud Sioux tribe. I'm also half Native American and half Black. And so I just want to say good morning. And
good morning. Absolutely. Beautiful. All right. And Dr. Lee, who else do we now have on deck?
I think we have Cheyenne Begay also in the green room.
All right. Let's bring her out. Here we go.
Oh, great. And she has Erin with her. Okay, great.
Yay! Great. All right. How's everybody doing? And welcome to New York.
Thank you for the welcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Cheyenne, let's start off with you. Tell us about your journey.
Okay. Good morning. Yat Ebene She Cheyenne Begay Inisha Kilo Chitney Nishlan Tet Chitney Brushes Chin Ado Nana says a Tetchni Dashi Dog Nationella Tego Huzana De Nasha. So good morning. I just introduced myself of where I come from, my mother and my paternal parentis clans, and I am from Windrock, Arizona, and I am also Diné, which is Navajo as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Erin, welcome.
Hi.
All right. Tell us about your journey.
It's a binish a Erin Johns inishia. She not ordinary touching nishle, but any bushes chin, autos and jikine a the shadow kipichini dashinelle. She not the naki a shnal hay zgahodzani cashed it. Now, what the Pagi, a university in New Mexico, as a energy pre medical binya instruct. Hello, I just introduced myself in my own language. I just basically said my name, like, hello, my name is Erin Johns. I'm 22 years old, and I stated my 4 clans of where I come from. So my first clan is the tobacco people, born for the folded arms people. My paternal grandfathers are the Towering House clan, and then my maternal, I'm sorry, I switched it. My fathers are the Towering House clan, and my paternal are the Red House clan.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, welcome one and all. Needless to say, and I know Dr. Lee, you kind of touched on it earlier in terms of them necessarily not wanting to kind of like have us speak about history, speak about what has transpired all over these many centuries. So you guys even speaking in your native tongue, I could imagine in public school that would have been outlawed. What has been your feeling in terms of really being true to the culture? Uh, uh, Dr. Granado, please tell me about what you've experienced.
Definitely. So, what I experienced in school is not being able to um, feel comfortable as representing myself as a Indigenous, a Native American female, and that I had to hide part of myself because I am half Native and half Black. So I was able to be welcomed as an African American female, but not welcomed as a Native American female. And that was very difficult growing up, especially while I was born in the 70s. So growing up in the 80s and the 90s was terrible. And still pretty relevant today in South Dakota, because I grew up in South Dakota. Still very prevalent of the racism, the systemic racism, and the historical trauma that we as Native Americans in South Dakota face, not being able to embrace your culture, your language, your tradition, and who you are.
Wow. Cheyenne and Erin, same experience?
Yeah. So when I was in elementary school, I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada. And then I moved back to the reservation. And when I moved back to the reservation, it was more of how I mostly found cultural identity within myself, compared to the city of where I was the only Native American in my class. And I always thought of something that I wasn't Native. I knew I was Navajo, but I didn't really see no one that was really like me in my school. I think moving back to the reservation was a great thing that my mom could do, because I learned my culture and my self-identity of who I am as a Diné person.
Beautiful. Erin?
For me, I grew up on the reservation. I was born and raised. I went to high school on the reservation. And where I go to college, it's not far, probably like a good 2-3 hours away. But and it's very diverse. There's so many Native students where I go to school. And growing up on the reservation, I'm truly proud of that. I'm glad that my parents were able to bring me up there, because I was very involved, like in our culture, our language, attending ceremonies and all of our traditional events. But coming out here, like to the city, bigger cities, when I tell people I'm Native, they mostly don't believe me. And like, oh, we thought you were Asian, or we thought you were, and they just ask the stereotypical questions like, do you get money from the government?
Wow.
And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. But it's like a culture shock to most people.
Absolutely. And Dr. Lee, I've already asked you a number of times, like, how the heck do you have this relationship with, with Staten Island, Wu-Tang Clan, all that stuff? So tell me about you. I think you're on mute. Let's see. I can unmute you here. Okay, you're good. All right.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes.
I've always had a special connection to New York City, although I was raised on the res. And through my so I've been working with the United Nations since my 20s, doing fighting for human rights, especially as it pertains to Indigenous communities globally. So just my consistent connection with the city by coming in for either UN meetings, UN events. I just met so many great people here in New York City that actually now became close friends and family, and the circle just keeps getting bigger. Happy to have met you both here. And so I think, and I love the fact that that we're highly welcomed here every time we come into the New York City space, and that there's definitely an exchange of respect and exchange of knowledge to my fellow New Yorkers here.
Beautiful. And Dr. Ebony, do tell in terms of your testimony to the UN, what was it like? And tell me, was there any, let's say, policy objectives that they will be reviewing?
We were not able to speak on policy objectives for them to review. However, it was a beautiful experience being able to meet people from Greenland to Canada to Mexico. It was just beautiful to see all of these Indigenous women of color throughout the world, and showing them as Indigenous people, Native American people here in America, that we still exist and we're not living in quote unquote teepees, and able to function in society just like everybody else, but we're still able to hold on to our culture. So it was a very proud moment for myself. I know it was a proud moment for the team and for the other 3 beautiful ladies that were on the panel with me. So it was just a great experience, and I can't wait to go back.
Nice, nice. Certainly, and Night Watchman, you can help me weigh in on this. Sometimes one of the things that we, as let's say, Black people in America, sometimes get a little bit, I guess, concerned and offended by, are sometimes a white person in our space taking the lead and telling us what we should expect or what we should be doing. Any thoughts on that?
Well, you're talking about we sometimes we call it mansplaining. Sometimes it's white splaining when somebody who's taken 5 minutes on Google and Wikipedia to learn something, and then they want to dangle their little fact and then come into the space as if they're an expert. So yeah, we've definitely seen that. But I'm glad that you all had an opportunity to speak to the United Nations, to a global audience, and express yourselves fully and authentically. And these are the ways that we have an opportunity to make a difference, where we can come to safe spaces and give people of what's going on. I know Curtis and I have learned a lot just listening to you and echoing, some of the things that we've seen happening in our communities, and that's why we are, this is an open space for you guys, and this is not necessarily the first time. We definitely are going to welcome you guys to come back on the show with any updates on what's going on. So
absolutely. Well, Dr. Lee, you already know swag.
Oh, he wants some free T-shirts from your basketball
no,
team.
that is not me. I pay for my stuff.
Okay, yeah, he pays for T-shirts. Yeah, so we want to support the swag, but I also want to hear about Dr. Crystal. You have a fashion line as well. So again, I think that's the 4th clone that does the fashion line of things.
Yes, it's called Dr. B Collections.
Wow.
So I have a few nicknames. My family calls me Bushy or Bijo. My Navajo nickname is Estan Balakot Beshbawo Baket Aloni, so all bees. So that's how Dr. B came as my name. Just back to my roots. And so definitely getting involved in the space of fashion. And I would love to see where this goes. I'm new. I'm new to the fashion industry and business. Again, I'm not a trained fashion designer, but I do love fashion, and that how we have the ability to utilize fashion to express ourselves. And so how to be a social change by way of fashion. I do like to say that for every product that we do sell, a large percentage goes back into our nonprofit efforts. So it has a huge element of social entrepreneurship to help for our youth and also our clients through our substance abuse program. And you can look good doing it and feel good while buying it, because it's going back into something that's relevant.
Absolutely. And Cheyenne and Erin, do you guys see yourselves as really cultural ambassadors whenever you travel the country?
I I think that I honestly think I do, because when you meet a lot of people. Like this past was it yesterday? 2 days ago, a lot of them were for Ukraine, and they asked people like you're the same age as you questions, and it's really great that they can have that person that's the same age as them to answer those questions and be a great representative, an ambassador for your own tribe, and to understand those questions. And it takes a lot of pride and a lot of opportunities for us as well to be role models, and that's one thing that we really want to do for our little nieces, our family members. In a way, we're becoming role models for them, and that's something that we take really great pride in. So,
Beautiful. Erin, same thing?
Yeah, I would consider us cultural ambassadors because, for example, Cheyenne is, or I should say Cheyenne, both of us model. So we have a lot of followers on Instagram and stuff. So, and it's nice to know that a lot of our youth and a lot of native people really look up to us, and we try to keep that pride to us, especially like when we come out to spaces like this. Like we really do try to represent as much as we can and let people know that we're still here, that we're still resilient, and that we're just as special as everybody else, you know. So
excellent. And Dr. Ebony, you too, in terms of, let's say, you're not just one thing, but many things. And when you travel these states, you're letting them know that you are a part of every, let's say, part of a person that, let's say, may be the marginalized group.
Definitely. I make sure that we command a room when we walk in, and that we're just as important as any other ethnicity within that room. My grandmother used to tell me, in order for you to understand where you're going, you must know where you came from. And that's powerful, that when we speak, we're not only speaking for ourselves, but for our ancestors as well, that we're not able to speak for themselves.
Nice. So now, I guess a Night Watchman, help me out, because I think Dr. Lee, you kind of mentioned this when Bob had mentioned that his wife had been doing the traditional hoop dancing with the Thunderbirds, because they are an Eastern United States phenomenon. You may not necessarily been how should I say, knowledgeable about that, but let's say where you're at in Arizona and Nevada, are there also those still keeping the culture alive big time? Oh,
okay, hold on.
Okay, there you go.
Yes, absolutely. I think we also, so in the Southwest, a lot of the tribes there have been able to sustain a lot of our cultural elements. So also in the Dakotas as well, the North, the South Dakotas. So, and I think when we figuratively speak about how colonization occurred, the East Coast was hit pretty hard first with the European influence, and then from the North, it was the French from Canada, and then from the South, it was the Spanish from Mexico. So just also conceptualizing the waves of colonization and who had contact first. Also plays a big imprint on how sustainable that we keep our cultures, and but yes, absolutely, we hold on. I think a lot of Navajos are more fluent in comparison with our language comparison to other tribes. So, and I think our youth, having Erin and Cheyenne here speak to the levels of how integrative they are in preserving the culture and the language, states a lot too. But also the fact that we're trying to revitalize through our Indigenous health efforts, through our company. A lot of the people that we do assist have lost some forms of identity. So we try to reintegrate that back in to their health and healing when they're addressing their substance issues. And we also bring in medicine men from different tribes. We have a Hopi medicine man, Apache, Navajo, Lakota, and we offer the spiritual and the cultural aspect too towards their health and healing. So it's really we're really using a hybrid of both Western medicine and integrating our culture and language and medicine back to our people.
Wow, wow. And you know what? I almost forgot, Dr. Ebony, thank you for your service. You know, I mean, 8 years. What was your experience like as a Native American and Black in the Army?
Well, a lot of people speak about how could you serve a country that basically caused mass genocide. The answer to that is if we as Native Americans cannot defend our own country and our own land, who else is going to do it? So I served my country as prior to being colonialized very proudly. And for me to say that I am a warrior speaks volumes, because it's not only for the United States that I served, but it was also for my homelands prior to being colonialized. So while I was in the military, I experienced a great number of difficulties from being a female first and foremost, a Native American and African American female. However, once I got kind of my feet wet a little bit, it wasn't so difficult. But in the 90s, you still had some struggles with masculinity and things like that. And so you had to be twice as strong to prove who you were and that you were able to move up in ranks.
Excellent, excellent. And Cheyenne and Erin, so tell me, in terms of you guys being college folk, and I'm also seeing Erin in terms of you with medical school, are we planning to actually bring that skill set to the res to improve the lot, the daily lives of the people on the res?
For me, yes, I do plan to come back to the res, because I honestly don't see myself leaving home. Like, that's where my roots are, and I'm very close with my parents.
Nice.
So, and I'm very close to like my community as well. So therefore, like once I graduate, I want to be a cardiologist, because I know a lot of our Navajo people suffer from like heart disease and all those kinds of things. And I know that our healthcare isn't that great, and that's something that I really want to improve. And one thing is, there's not as much Native medical doctors out there, and I want to come back and help my people so they know that they have someone they can trust and that they can go to. Because back home, everything's all about kinship. Everybody's all about family. Even though we're not related, they can be like, oh yeah, like my granddaughter's a doctor and I go see her. You should go see her. Like, we trust her very well. And that's something that I want to do.
Beautiful, beautiful. Cheyenne, tell me about you. Besides, of course, I know that you got a little bit of b-ball game. I see, huh?
Yeah. So I want to, right now I'm in my bachelor's program with criminal justice studies. And I do want to pursue a master's degree in Indigenous law. So my ultimate career goal is to be the district attorney for my Navajo tribe. Beautiful. And I want to be able to create those spaces, not only on my reservation, but also at the government level and in Washington. And to be able to be a great representative for my people as well, that we have our own government, and I want to be able to understand the history and the language that comes with it, as well as to be a great representative in acknowledging those spaces in Washington as well.
So definitely, I'm hearing that you won't be banning books or history, huh?
Hopefully I get to rewrite them and tell them the real truth of what's going on the reservation.
Gotcha. NightWatchman?
Oh, I'm just, sometimes I just sit back and enjoy the show. I am just loving the fact that we're able to give a platform for these remarkable women who have come from the reservation to speak on a global stage and represent who they are and their people, and show the diversity involvement, engagement with their people, and intelligence, and I'm glad for us to be a part of it and show what you guys are doing. And other than that, I'm just gonna go back and continue to watch.
Yeah.
Let you do all the yes, you do all the heavy lifting.
Wow.
You're the Gemini. You like to talk.
See.
I'm kidding. Sort of.
So, Dr. Lee, you see what I'm subjected to on a daily basis. You see this, right?
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, I really am truly pleased to have met you and just hear about the journey. But also, the women that you brought on here are like astounding. And Dr. Ebony, I love the fact that you're claiming not only your native heritage but also your Black heritage. Yay!
I have no choice. It's both part of me, and I embrace both of them and welcome both of them. Without being one, you can't be the other. So
exactly. And then we have these young dynamos here who I'm really curious and anxious to see what you guys are going to be doing for sure. And Night Watchman, we got to definitely let them know that they have always this safe space, or what?
Absolutely. And as Dr. Crystal, it seems is making New York part of her triangle of cities that she likes to work out with. I have a feeling, although the way we do our show, you don't have to be here in New York to do it. We can certainly do this by remote. Although if you guys do it from where you are, you might have to get up a little bit earlier.
Okay, and I'll throw this out there. Since a lockdown, of course, COVID, been doing a lot of, let's say, reading. Well, I like to do a lot of audiobooks. So let's say for the novice or the ignorant individual who wants to really get a true understanding of the history of the Native America here in this country, what would be your go-to book or few books that you could recommend? Anyone, jump in. Here we go.
I wouldn't say books. I'd say more like documentaries. Like if you type in, I don't know, maybe Native American documentaries in YouTube, a lot of them are made by Native people and really like what it's like on the reservation and stuff like that.
Yes.
For a good example, it's about basketball. Our res, Netflix came to our res and went to our Native schools here on the reservation, and it's called Basketball or Nothing, and it talks about how us Native kids grew up on the reservation, talking about our schooling, talking about how sports and our process going into college. And I think that's a pretty good example of like what we go through and stuff.
Gotcha.
So if you want to watch it, it's really good.
Okay. So you're definitely gonna send us that information definitely to check out that we can distribute. Dr. Ebony, any recommendations?
Yes, I would say read the book "Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee."
Oh my God! Just say no more. Incredible read. Even though it came out in the 70s, still relevant today.
Absolutely. And then also in the spirit of Crazy Horse, it speaks of the AIM time frame. It's not really truly based on Crazy Horse, but it is talking about the American Indian movement, Leonard Pelletier, Russell, Dennis Banks. So it's pretty thought-provoking and something that I think people need to understand exactly what happened at that time frame.
Gotcha. And Dr. Lee,
so I would like to give a shout out to one of my former mentors, rest in peace, John Trudell. His documentary is mind-blowing. He was part of the American Indian movement, among others, just a real advocate, human rights. John Trudell, it's about an hour documentary. He's amazing. And also the Navajo Code Talkers. I think, just understanding how language systems help this country, even in the event that what they did to our people. And also, I really like the Wilma Mankiller story. She's the first ever Native American elected leadership to represent a whole tribe, and just kind of her stories. Her book is also amazing in dedication to Women's History Month, the Wilma Mankiller, and she self-wrote that book.
Wow. One of the things that we kind of started, and I'd like any of you to jump in there in terms of really the disappearance and lack of, let's say, looking for Native women who've disappeared from the res. Please, anyone, comment on that.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I'll start off. Turn your.
Okay, go ahead. We got you. A note hit. Go ahead, Doc.
Okay,
Doc?
so I'm here. Oh, he's muted me. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. In Oglala, back in South Dakota, on the Pine Ridge Reservation, we're working closely with them with missing and murdered Indigenous women and children and persons. And over the last year, in 2022 alone, when we first got the report, I want to say it was in June, there was already 89 victims.
Wow.
with the top 10 that were missing recently were closely related to my family, with one being Marie Mason first. She passed away. She was raped and murdered and left for dead. And by the time somebody found her, she was already passed. She is a relative of mine, and we are still seeking justice. I also had a niece that was transported from South Dakota in a trunk of a vehicle, and luckily a stand-byer witnessed some unusual behavior by the suspects and called the police, and they were able to find her. Otherwise, she would still be missing, and we would never know what happened to her. But she was found in the back of the vehicle.
Incredible.
Yes, things like that happen throughout the United States that aren't being spoke about, especially in the man towns where the women are being hunted and after at the oil fields. So it's scary to see that this is happening, that we are being preyed upon. But not only are we being preyed upon for missing and murdered, but we're also being preyed upon when it comes to mental health. It's an epidemic down in Arizona where we're being taken off of the reservations, being told that we're going to seek assistance. And then all of a sudden, we're basically kidnapped and taken into group homes without any outside connections. So they're taken, not being found until they're able to quote unquote escape or make contact with family members.
Wow. Okay. Well, Cheyenne and Erin, any thoughts on that too? Are you guys, I guess, very, very cautious in terms of your travels?
Yes, we are very cautious. One is that we always have to watch our surroundings. And one thing is that we always have to be like, when we see a peer of ours or someone younger than us and older, the same age range as us, as they go missing and it's unreported, or they were raped, or there's domestic violence. And it's very hard because we could be in that situation at any day, any given day. Wow. And I think as Native American and as both of us, we're always that friend that's always there to talk to them and to be able to have a shoulder to lean on when they need it. And we're always there to help them. And if they need to talk, we're there for them all the time. And I think that's really great that we created that personality for them in order, because not many people think that they have anyone to go to. And I think it's always great to have that friend, that cousin, that family member that you can talk to and be that person to support and help them go through this transition of everything.
Beautiful. Well, NightWatchman?
Yeah, we're at that time. We got to start wrapping up. So I think we'd like to give everybody a chance to just, just leave us some closing comments. It could be thoughts on your UN experience or anything, any thoughts that you'd like to leave us with.
Who do you want to start off? You want to start off with Dr. Ebony? Hey. Let's go. Go ahead. We got you.
I would like to say thank you first and foremost for allowing us to be on the panel today, being able to represent our nations, because we are from different nations, even though we're still in America. We're different tribes, and therefore we represent our own nation. So I appreciate the opportunity to be actually visual, especially in the Indigenous Women's Day just the other day. So I appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward to another time where we can go a little bit more in depth on
Yes.
what Dr.
Yes.
Lee actually does throughout the United States with Indigenous Health, as I'm her administrator for substance abuse and mental health. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Beautiful, beautiful. Cheyenne and Erin.
I would just like to say thank you in my Indigenous language for this opportunity. I know it means a lifetime to me, and that I'll always cherish this moment, especially this whole entire trip. It's my first time in New York, and
welcome. Yes.
And the first time is being able to go to the United Nations and to represent is something I'll always cherish forever.
Excellent, excellent. Erin.
I just like to thank you for having us on the show. It's so funny because Cheyenne and I were talking about, like, I always want to be on a podcast show, and we're told that we're going to be on one yesterday, and we're pretty excited.
Nice, nice. Well, remember, you're going to have to come back to New York again during the summer, and when we can just walk around Manhattan and see all the sights, okay?
Okay. We went to the Wax Museum yesterday. It was really fun.
Very nice, very nice. Well, Dr. Lee, Renaissance woman, take us home.
Take you to the res. I'm kidding. Well, I just wanted to, of course, echo what Dr. Granados said. Just thank you for allowing us to utilize this platform to be able to speak on certain topics that impact our communities. Visibility and representation is one of the most needed resources for us to get our voices out and heard. I also want to extend a special gratitude to Dr. Granados, Erin, and Cheyenne for partaking in this journey that we have all encountered and will continue to grow together. And also that Indigenous Health will be starting in New York City very soon. We will be partnering with the American Indian Community House, which is a nonprofit that services all urban Native Americans here in the city to access culturally responsive healthcare. So we'll be moving here within the next 3 months.
Excellent.
And if you would like to support our efforts, please go to our unitednatives.org website. We have different ways you can support. Look at the work that we're doing. We could always use allyship and continued support from all communities. So thank you so much.
And ladies and gentlemen, they have swag. All right. Night Watchman.
Hey, well, you guys have been listening to Soul Lounge Prime Time. We go on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. You can also find us live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. You can find us every Monday night, 7 o'clock on the radio, 8 o'clock on YouTube and Facebook. And you can also find us on your favorite podcast platforms such as Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you all coming on our show, and we wish you well and safe journeys back home.
Yes.